Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Bienvenue and welcome to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on the phone is, once again, co-host Alan Niven. Of course, he had been absent for a while, but look at us. We're 2 in a row. Isn't this exciting?
Oh, yeah. It's very exciting. I actually, let me get the sarcasm out of my voice. If it's not obvious, I will make it plain that I really enjoy my conversations with you, and I think it's very gracious of you to include me in on these things, and I have fun doing it, so thank you.
Well, I have no choice. I was looking at the Alan Niven Wikipedia page, and at the bottom it says Alan is currently co-host with Mitch Lafon, so I don't know who wrote that there. I swear, as God is my witness, it wasn't me, but apparently...
Well, it wasn't... Believe you me, it wasn't me either. I don't deal with Wikipedia, and if you actually look me up, you'll find it's absolutely minimal, which is my preference. But Westwood One, that was a decade ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. Now we're fully independent and enjoying life. But let us get over to today's guest. It is the one and only Ron Keel. And he has got a new album called South by South Dakota, which is a collection of cover songs from great Southern American bands. And, well, I'm going to ask you this. Have you ever met Ron Keel? Because he was, at some point in the 80s, around the Spencer Proffer stable of artists, for the lack of a better word. And you were in that sort of milieu as well. Do you know Ron at all?
Yes, I remember Ron from the early 80s, and he was sometimes Keel, and he was sometimes Steeler, if I remember correctly. And I do remember him as being, he really tried really hard. But Ron never quite, I think, realized what he thought he could be or what he thought he should be. But he always gave it the good college try. And ironically, and maybe I should feel bad about it, but I don't, I was once asked by Bruce Lundvall, who was just opening up a new label, EMI Manhattan, to go and evaluate Keel or Steeler or whatever they were calling themselves at the time, as a potential signing for his label. And I actually told him, well, I don't really have to do that because, you know, we've done a lot of shows with the band and I can give you a pretty good rundown from firsthand experience. And Bruce said, no, well, I said I'd send somebody, so if you wouldn't mind going, I'd really appreciate the favor. Well, the irony was that I went there not expecting to have my mind changed. And I got there early enough to see the opening band. And quite ironically, the opening band had a stunning vocalist. And I was just blown away by him. I thought he had an incredible tone. And I went back to Bruce and I said, you know, I really don't think that you and Keel are going to be a good fit. But their opening band, I really think you should take a very serious look at. They have got a stunning vocalist, a really, really good voice. And Bruce actually said, no, well, I was only going to look at the one thing. I'm not going to look at the other. And I said, well, if that's the case, if you don't mind, I'm going to pass on my observations to another friend of mine. And Bruce said, yeah, sure. It doesn't worry me at all. So Bruce missed out because the band is called City Kid. And they later changed their name to Tesla when my friend Tom Zutaut signed them. And I liked them so much, I put them on a Great White show up in Sacramento, and I got a hold of their demo. And I had Jack Russell and Don Dawkins walk that demo into Tom's office and stick it on his desk and look at him and say, you should look at this band seriously. But, you know, obviously the rest is history. And we actually ended up doing a Great White Tesla summer tour in '88. But that's my Ron Keel story.
That's wow. We like that, and we love Jeff Keith. So we can't complain about that. And thank you for that, because they ended up working with Steve Thompson and Michael Barbiero and all those wonderful people. Just real quick, in 83, 84, in that time period, Ron Keel was temporarily the singer for Black Sabbath. It was all something that Spencer had put together. Were you aware of him being in Black Sabbath? And just in general, what were your sort of your impressions of Spencer? You must have met him hundreds of times over the years.
How ironic. Beautifully set up. I have never met Spencer Proffer in my life, but there's a lovely story to that. Tommy Zutaut had come to me 3 times asking me to work with a band that he had signed that he was having significant problems with. And I'd been very reluctant to get involved because they were a group of Class A fuck-ups. And they were actually in Spencer Proffer's Pasha studio working on some demos. And I agreed to go with Tom and talk to the band up there and listen to what they were doing in the studio. And I did end up actually sitting in with Hans-Peter Huber, who worked for Spencer Proffer as his engineer, who was a lovely guy, really nice dude. And Hans asked if I'd sit in with him and help him do the mixes. And that band was obviously Guns N' Roses. And Tom, because of the success that Spencer Proffer had with Quiet Riot, had decided that he'd be a good match with Guns N' Roses, that he'd be a good producer. Of course, being as obstinate and opinionated as I am, I had a slightly differing perspective. I didn't think that chemistry would be right at all. And I had to deal with the situation that basically Spencer had been promised Guns as a client. And I thought, well, the very least I've got to do is meet with him and sound him out and get to know him and get a feel for him and adjust my attitude accordingly. That's only the fair, right, and proper thing to do. So we scheduled a meeting, and I drove all the way across town to his studio, turned up on time. I'm a very punctual person. I think punctuality is a mark of respect. And was shown into his office, where I was introduced to his then female assistant, who informed me that Spencer wasn't coming to the meeting, that he had other things that were more significant and important to do than to meet with a nobody like me, and she was going to take the meeting. And I left that circumstance with a big smile on my face, because he had just given me exactly what I needed. And I took what I needed, put it in my car, drove it down to Geffen, walked into Tom Zutaut's office and said, "That motherfucker is not doing this fucking project over my dead fucking body. We're going to look for somebody good." And of course, we ended up finding Mike Klink. And Mike Klink was proven by history to be a moment of magic and brilliant chemistry. And that's my Spencer Proffer story.
And how dare they disrespect the Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon co-host? It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. But
well, I didn't have that status back in that day, to be fair.
I know, and it is quite a feather in the cap, I must say. But let us get over to Ron Keel. Always a pleasure to talk to Ron. He was on the Kiss tribute album I did back in 2013. To help out the palliative care home and the local palliative care home. So anyway, thank you to that. Thank you to Ron. And with that, le voici. Here he is, the one, the only, Ron Keel. We are speaking with vocalist Ron Keel. The new album is South by South Dakota. It is a covers record of all the best of Southern rock, or as we say in Quebec, rock sudiste. So bonjour, Ron. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. This is the best gig I'll do all day. Getting to talk to Mitch Lafon, getting in the ring with one of the heavyweights. I'm fired up to talk to you and your listeners, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so let us get into this South by South Dakota album. A lot of great bands you've covered on here. Blackfoot, 38 Special, Molly Hatchet, and so on and so forth. Talk to me a little bit about the inspiration for doing this, and also just how is Southern rock different than some of the more classic rock and roll, because I have to tell you, some of these bands, they don't come to Montreal. They don't really seem to come to the Northeast, quite frankly. So talk to me about this and that sort of special brand of Southern rock.
Well, this is classic rock. It does have those Southern roots, but Southern rock is a way of life. It's a mindset. It's something that, as you know, Mitch, because you've been covering me since the Iron Horse days 20 years ago, when I kind of combined my metal heart with my cowboy attitude and created this hybrid style of music, which I called at the time hard rockin' Southern country metal, which is a pretty convoluted title to call it. But once you mix the screaming guitars and the screaming vocals and songs about real life with the thundering drums and all that, it sounds like Southern rock. That label has been applied to me personally for over 20 years now. And when I was growing up, as you recall, because you're a huge Kiss fan, I know, and so am I, we would see some of these Southern rock bands opening up for the hard rock and metal bands. Blackfoot and Marshall Tucker Band and the Outlaws, they would be on the same bill as some of our arena rock and heavy rock, hard rock heroes. Back then, there wasn't such a delineation between this is Southern or this is not. It's all classic rock. I'm really proud of this new record, South by South Dakota, in so many ways, because it's the first time in my entire career since 1983 when I went in the studio with Yngwie Malmsteen to cut that Steeler album. And every album I've done since, we've been on a mission. Okay, it's time to cut a record. You write the songs, you rehearse, you do your pre-production, you prepare as best you can. You go in the studio, you lay it down, and you're on a mission. This time, it was totally an accident. It was totally organic. It did not happen by choice. We were in the studio cutting last year's Fight Like a Band album, and we'd go in the morning and just horse around, have a couple cups of coffee, and play some 38 Special or some Marshall Tucker. And then we'd do our gig, and we'd cut the songs for Fight Like a Band. At the end of the day, we'd wind down by having a cocktail or two or five, and we'd play some Allman Brothers or some Skinner or whatever. So after about 4 or 5 tunes worth of this, I realized my producer was recording the stuff. And one day I said, hey, play that back for me. What did we do yesterday? And he played it back. I think it was Train. And he played it back for me. I said, man, that's really special. It just happened that way. And it was totally organic. And then after about 5, 6 tunes, I realized I had the foundation for an album. And I said, let's make it, the title just popped into my head, not a stroke of genius, just one of those ideas that I'm very thankful for. Let's call it South by South Dakota, because we live in South Dakota. This is home to me. Sioux Falls, South Dakota is where I live. I'm looking out at the river right now and the trees and the forest and my log cabin in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota. So that title just grabbed me by the balls. And I thought, we've got 5 or 6 songs. We've got a title. Let's add some tunes to it. What don't we have? Well, we don't have a Skynyrd song, but we've been doing this Red, White, and Blue tune in the show, which is the first single for the record. So we decided to cut that. The Creedence medley, which is a live recording from our very first gig, got to include that. Our version of Ghost Riders in the Sky, produced by Henry Paul from the Outlaws, got to include that. So all of a sudden, we're sitting here looking at the foundation for a record. And also, for the first time in my life, I can go on into an interview like this and brag about how great the songs are. Because, before it was my songs, and, I can't just tell you and your listeners and your audience how great my songs are. I could tell you, without a doubt, that these songs are some of the best ever written. They are a part of the fabric of the American songbook and the classic rock songbook. Some of the best tunes ever written by Molly Hatchet, 38 Special, Blackfoot, Outlaws, Marshall Tucker Band, the Allman Brothers, and more. So it's a very rewarding project for me in a lot of ways. And, every time I listen to it, and I listen to it a lot, it blows me away. And I'm playing a song from the album each week on my radio show, and listening back to the track, I find myself getting caught up and just enjoying listening to it. The response from the fans has been incredible, and just really proud of this. It's unique. It's unlike anything I've ever done. and I think it's really good.
It's great. And by the way, the Molly Hatchet song, Flirtin' with Disaster, is, to me, their best song, and to me, one of the top 20 songs of all time. So good. And fun fact, you and Molly Hatchet share something in common. You have both covered Kiss songs in your career. Huh? There you go.
Well, who hasn't covered a Kiss song? I mean, if you haven't covered a Kiss song, you will, right?
Right. You have to at some point.
Thank you to you, Mitch Lafon, for that Rock and Roll Hell, which is still one of the greatest Kiss covers of my entire career, and certainly appreciative of that. But that Flirtin' with Disaster song that you mentioned, I listened to it yesterday because I'm playing it on my radio show this week. I listened to it because I just couldn't bring myself to hit stop. I plugged it in. I'd listen to the whole thing top to bottom. And how relevant is that in times like these when we are really flirting with disaster, talking about all the corruption and all the fact that we are living on the edge, flirting with disaster? That song still lyrically rings true today, and the energy and the music is, of course, timeless as well.
It really is. It really is. So let me ask you this. Since we're talking about the current world situation, a lot of bands have taken releases for March, April, May, and they've said, F this, we're gonna release them in September, October, November 2021. You said, no. This is coming out, and it's gonna be out. And so talk to me about the decision to release an album in this context. I personally feel that it's a perfect time because everybody's sitting at home wanting to be entertained and can actually spend the time and listen to an album like we did back 30 years ago. Was it a struggle, a decision? Were you like, I don't know what to do? Talk to me about releasing it in this context.
Great question. And we did talk about it for about a minute. Bill Chavis, the head of Highball Music, and I had a conversation. We had the release date locked in for April 24th, and we thought, of course, it has to come up in a discussion. I don't think either one of us really considered it seriously, but we thought, we talked about it. Should we delay this release? And if you do delay it or postpone it, when do you postpone it until, and why? Because right now, it's all we can do. This is the only gig I've got, man. This is my new music. I'm excited about it. There's no reason to put it off. And so far, the fan response has been overwhelming. People are out there in their garage working on their motorcycle or their truck, and they're cranking up South by South Dakota. They're out there on the patio grilling steaks, and they're listening to our record. It's a perfect summertime album, and it's perfect. One reviewer called it comfort food for the ears, and I thought, what a great quote that was. It's comfort food. It's something that everybody needs, and the response has been incredible. Now, the only hesitance I had was asking people to spend their money right now. It wasn't a matter of releasing the music. Everybody needs the music, and I think it's a perfect time to release an album like this. But it was tough for me to go online, on social media, on the website, and in interviews like this, and ask everybody to fork out their hard-earned cash, especially when a lot of our friends, fans, and family are out of work. They're not sure what they're going to do next week or next month, so it's a tough time to ask people to spend their money. What we've done with this is we've taken the price tag down as far as we possibly can and given the Patreon subscribers a discount to where you can get the signed album, the signed poster, the guitar pick, the sticker, the whole deal for less than $15. And that's compared to the last album, that's a substantial discount. And so we've taken the price down as far as we can, but that was the hardest part about making that decision, was asking people to spend their money on it. And so far, people have been extremely supportive and unanimous, saying it was well worth it.
It is well worth it. A Keel or Ron Keel band, Ronnie Lee Keel, whatever name that is on the cover, it is definitely worth forking out the bucks for. But all right, let me ask you this, because you just mentioned reviews. And this has nothing to do with the interview, but I'm going to throw it out there. When I used to write for magazines, they used to ask me to write reviews. And I hated it because there is no reason for you, the reader, to care at all what I say about an album. If I don't like the new Bjork and you do, well, then you do. And if I love the new C.C. DeVille solo album and you don't, I don't care. So how important are reviews to you, and do you take stock in them at all? I mean, I know you just quoted one, so you must give it some importance.
I do. I take a lot of stock in it because journalists like you or anybody else who's talking about the record, reviewing it, you just reviewed it yourself. You said any Ron Keel album is well worth the money. Now, I could take that quote. I could use it because that's Mitch Lafon talking right
Yes,
there.
go ahead and do that.
Last time said, I will. Eddie Trunk said about the last album, this is good stuff. You know, I mean, I do appreciate that. And the fact that the fans need to know what people like you think about it. What is it? Not only are you saying I like it or I don't like it, but a lot of these reviews are describing the album, what it means to them. A lot of these people were Keel fans growing up in the 80s, listening to my music at the time, and they're explaining to the audience on my behalf what I've done, how I've evolved, who I am now, what I'm doing, and how it relates to Keel, Steeler, Black Sabbath, all the stuff I did in the 80s. They are bridging that gap for me, and they are my mouthpiece to the public, so I do appreciate it. Every good review means a lot to me, and sometimes the facts get misconstrued. I saw one the other day that was very complimentary, and the guy obviously really loved the record, but every time he would try and cite a fact about me or my career or my history, it was a little bit wrong. And I don't want to call him out on that. History is written by Wikipedia or Mitch Lafon. I don't know.
History is written by the winners. No, but it's just funny because, growing up in the 70s, I liked Aerosmith and Kiss and all the bands, especially Kiss. Whether it's Rolling Stone magazine, it was one bad review after another, and I just kept thinking, I don't effing care if you don't like Love Gun. I love it. I really don't care if you don't like Creatures of the Night. I love it. So that's sort of where I cut my teeth on reviews going, you know what? I don't care if it got a 1 on 5. I dig it.
I think our first review, Mitch, back in the day, the very first, when Right to Rock came out, and we were finally signed to a major label, and Gene Simmons is producing the Right to Rock, big splash, big review in Billboard magazine, and they just trashed it, man. They took that record and tore it a new one. And so I think that it does affect you. You can't please everyone. I've learned through the years and through the decades that I've had some success. I've sold a few million records. I've seen all my dreams come true. I'm very thankful for my opportunities and my accomplishments. But if you sell 3 million records, that means there's billions of people that don't like you or don't want what you do, and you got to be able to live with that. Let it roll off the back of your shoulders. Every time somebody gives me a hard time, whether it's a fan on social media or a bad review, then you kind of let it slide off the back of your shoulders and just move on. You do what you do, and I think that I've tried to, at this point in my career, for the last decade or more, with songs like that are on this new album, the covers album, the Fight Like a Band album from last year, Metal Cowboy, which came before that. There's something special about the songs that resonates with everyone. It's well produced, it's well performed, and no, it's not everybody's cup of tea. But if you say it sucks or you say it's not good, that's your opinion. But you can't say it's not well done. I'm very proud of my work, and I'm proud of the fans that have stood their ground with me and said, no, it's not the same guy that we listened to or bought in '85, but he's still doing good work, and I'm enjoying what I'm hearing. So I appreciate all those reviews and all the fan responses. Every person that says something positive or listens to the record and gets something good out of it, that's fine with me.
All right, fair enough. But the good thing, though, now is on social media, you can block them. So,
I don't do that very often, man. It takes a lot for me to block somebody. I let everybody have their say. But my social media, that's my house online. You're not going to come into my house and piss on the rug.
No,
if I don't like what you're doing or what you're saying, and it's not necessarily if you're saying it about me, like last week.
Right.
We promoted an article by Jill Meniketti, the manager of Y&T.
Yes.
And Jill is managed
which I shared
Y&T,
as well. Good article.
Yes, and it was a great article. And it wasn't us complaining. It was me and the guys in Stryper, the guys in Y&T, Jeff Scott Soto. We're not complaining. We're just being honest and telling people what it's like in our lives and in our careers at this time. And I had a couple of negative comments when I posted that review, and people take it too far. And on Facebook or any other type of social media, everybody's a genius, everybody's fearless, and they can say and do whatever they want behind the security of that computer screen. And I will call them out on it. If you say something out of the line or do something out of the line, I will call them out. But if you want to, I'm fair game. You could say whatever you want about me. But that brings me to another great topic, Mitch, because
yes,
you are extremely involved in social media.
Correct.
And
I had a manager
sharing.
the other day call me an influencer, and I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure I am. I'm pretty sure people knew about Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, and Kiss way before I ever got to Twitter. But anyway,
you are, and the fact that we're out there fighting the good fight and doing what we got to do to maintain that relationship with our fans, our listeners, your readers, and so forth. That's important, and it's important to be honest and real.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because we were talking. You mentioned back in the day with the Gene Simmons album and so on and so forth. Around that time, there was, of course, work on the Black Sabbath thing, and you had been called in to audition and so on and so forth. We've discussed that in previous interviews, so we're not going to retell the entire story. But I was just speaking with Victor Langen of Kick-Axe, and he tells a story of how he was writing songs and giving them to Spencer Proffer. And without his knowledge, Spencer took these songs and hustled them off over to Black Sabbath. And then Ian Gillan left the band and nothing happened. But in between that, Ian leaving and... Ian leaving. Talk to me about, were you involved at all with any of those songs? Did you hear the name Victor Langen? Had you heard the name Kick-Axe?
Well, the guys in Kick-Axe, that was certainly on my radar because we were all recording, doing demos, and Spencer Proffer was producing these acts right after the Quiet Riot, Metal Health, 10 million plus album sales. Spencer was the guy. And he had signed Kick-Axe, produced that record. I think he did King Cobra as well. And King Cobra ended up doing one of those songs, Hunger, which was a Kick-Axe song, which I recorded for my Black Sabbath demo. So it's a very small circle there at Pasha Studios in 1983, 84, when I was the lead singer of Black Sabbath for a short period of time. And that's why the whole deal fell apart. I think Spencer got greedy. I think he had these songs in his stable or in his catalog that he owned the publishing on. And if he could get Black Sabbath to cut 5 or 6 of those tunes, you know that the financial repercussions of that, especially if he owned, 99% of the publishing royalties on those songs. So that's why he was having me demo those songs for Sabbath and why he was pushing those songs on Black Sabbath. He was trying to make them into a commercial 80s hair metal band. And that's not who Sabbath is, man. Tony and Geezer weren't having any of it. And Spencer got fired. I got caught in the crossfire. But yeah, those songs on my Black Sabbath demo, I'm pretty sure they were all Kick-Axe songs. And many of the guys in Kick-Axe, I believe, played the instruments on the tracks as well. So the very, very small circle there. And it did backfire for both Spencer Proffer and for Ron Keel. But it's a nice little historical
nice little tidbit.
Memento.
So because Victor tells the story of he wrote these songs for the next Kick-Axe album, and Spencer turned around and used them for a Transformers movie and for King Cobra so you actually got to sing on some of these Kick-Axe songs. That's what you just said. I
did, and I actually posted that
Hunger
demo on my Patreon page. The fans have been clamoring for the Black Sabbath demo for all these years. And what happened was Dana Strum came in and produced my Black Sabbath demo. Jakey Lee came by the studio to give me a pep talk. Dana Strum came in and Spencer hired Dana. Said, "Get this guy, on these tracks." And the vocals on that demo are absolutely out of control because what I was doing, I mean, I was showing off to the best of my ability to show Black Sabbath what I could do. And then Dana was digging even deeper, trying to get these ungodly, loud, high, piercing, long screams out of me. And so the vocals, actual vocals on that demo are pretty impressive. The songs, that there's a reason they were reject Kick-Axe songs. And probably, I know that, like we said, King Cobra cut that song Hunger, which was a single for them, and that was also on the Black Sabbath demo for me. But it was an amazing experience. And to do the demo and for Tony and Geezer to hear it and hire me, and we signed a contract. I have a signed contract on my office wall that I was the lead singer of Black Sabbath. I got to meet Don Arden, I mean, their manager at the time. And, dude, what a scary dude. I mean, he set me down. He read me the riot act. He told me how much I was getting paid. He told me what I had to do, what was expected of me. And he was a hard ass. I said, dude, I'm the lead singer of Black Sabbath. Bring it on. Whatever you want, I'm here for you. And it's an amazing experience. And hanging out with Tony and Geezer, listening to them wish they could just get Ozzy back somehow. And, eventually they did, and the rest is history. But nice little chapter in my book, in my life story. And I've been able to now, as we spoke about off the air, I've been able to relive that fantasy and be as close as I'm ever going to get to being the lead singer of Black Sabbath with this new Emerald Sabbath album. The website's emeraldsabbath.com. And I was chosen along with some other Black Sabbath alumni, including Vinny Appice, who did the drum tracks, Tony Martin, and who else? Dave Walker's on the record. Beth Bevan, who was drumming during the time when I was in Sabbath. Bev was the drummer and played on Born Again. And we got together and recorded a tribute album of Sabbath classics. And I got to sing one song from Ozzy, Hole in the Sky, which is an iconic Ozzy classic. And then I got to sing Trashed from Ian Gillan. And I got to do my version of Die Young, originally sung by Ronnie James Dio on the Heaven and Hell album. So I finally got to live that dream and sing those songs and bring them to life for my personal gratification. And Ronnie was a friend of mine, man. And I think if he's listening from wherever he is, heaven or hell, I think Ronnie would approve.
Oh yeah, he would. It's just great stuff, and it's amazing how we really are at 6 degrees of separation. I mean, here I am, I'm interviewing the guy from Kick-Axe. He's telling me this story, and it turns out that it was the period that you were there, and then you just mentioned Dana Strum. I actually spoke to Dana yesterday. We're going to hopefully do an interview in about 2 or 3 weeks from now. So, boy, what a small, tight, friendly circle.
Oh, cool.
I do want to ask you one more thing before we head off. You did cover Blackfoot on this Train, a song previously covered by Warrant, actually. The band Blackfoot, they are still around, but they're Blackfoot 2.0. They are very clear about it. There's no original members. We're going to go out with this new lineup, and we're going to reestablish the brand. I personally think that's fine. I mean, if fans want to come out and hear the songs, whatever, have more power to you. What do you think of that concept of being upfront and saying, hey, listen, we have changed everybody, but we're keeping the brand. Come out and enjoy these songs anyway.
I am all for it, Mitch. And as being a huge Kiss fan like you are, I could turn that question back on you. But I would support Kiss without Gene and Paul. I would support Star Trek without William Shatner. And, of course, that franchise, that brand has lived on through the years with different cast members. Tarzan, James Bond. These are iconic characters from our culture. Why shouldn't they be reinvented, recreated, and portrayed by newer, younger, different actors, singers, whatever? And so I fully support that. And I would love to see the new Blackfoot. In fact, I would love to be on tour with those guys. It would be a perfect match. RKB and the new Blackfoot 2.0. I'm a huge fan. So I support Ricky Medlock and his decision to kind of reinvent that band and launch them in his own image and all that. I think it's cool as hell.
It is. And they put out an album in 2016 called Southern Native with this new lineup. It's a great album. There's nothing wrong with that album. So fans, go check that out. And you know, when you say would I support Kiss with new lineup, yeah, listen, why not? I've always compared it to a baseball team. So Babe Ruth is not a Yankee anymore. Does that mean the Yankees have to change their name and change their uniform? If you go to the game and they win and you cheer and you go home happy, what is the problem? And so if you go to Kiss 2.0 in 2028 and you go home happy, what's the problem? And if you're not interested, you stay home. What's the problem? I mean, I don't see what the problem is. And I'm also of the opinion that we're down to our last, 5, 10, 15 years with these bands. I don't see Alice Cooper touring in 2033. I don't see, so just take it for what it is. Enjoy it. I know my mom loves Elvis and Frank Sinatra. Do you know when the last time I went to an Elvis concert with my mom is? Never. We can't go. Right? So if Keel
Have you been
comes
to see an Elvis impersonator with your mom?
I have not, but I guess I should. Well, but the point being is that if Keel comes into town and there's a different guy on drums, and if Kiss comes into town and there's a different... You go, and if it puts a smile on your face, that's it. That's all. And don't worry about who's playing.
It's all about entertainment, man.
It is.
Exactly. No, I think it's totally cool. And I fully expected, getting back to the Kiss thing, because I know you and I are both huge Kiss fans, I fully expected, and still kind of do. I expected there will be a Kiss 10 years from now, and Paul and Gene might not be up there singing and playing. But, I think we all, either it's wishful thinking or it's just an interesting topic to discuss. But certainly those bands have been a part of our lives and are the soundtrack of our youth and our entire lives. So
yeah, and you just call
I think that's one thing we bring home on this new South by South Dakota album. These songs, these bands are timeless, and a lot of our fans now these are Ron Keel fans. They're Ron Keel band fans. They weren't even born when The Right to Rock came out, and they're in the front row with their hand in the air and they're singing along, and we're bringing these songs to a new generation of rock fans. That it's all classic rock, and there's a reason it's classic, because it's really, really good. And I'm very proud of the new record. I appreciate the opportunity to talk the rock with you and rock the talk with Mitch Lafon and promote the new South by South Dakota album. And if every one of your listeners would at least just check it out at ronkeel.com, then then I've done my job for the day. So
yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you more than you know, man.
Absolutely. And I'll just say one thing about the Kiss thing. If Kiss goes on and calls, an evening with Kiss or Kiss the musical experience, whatever, and they come to town, I actually think it might be better than the current Kiss, because they would be more apt to cover the entire catalog and do some kind of historical perspective and do songs that the current band is not doing, not out of any kind of maliciousness. They're not doing it because they're playing their classic. So I think, it actually might be beneficial to have these bands, the Van Halen experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'll see it. And I'll meet you in Vegas 10 years from now, Mitch, and we'll go watch the Van Halen experience or the Kiss experience, just like we're now seeing the Michael Jackson hologram or the Dio hologram or the Elvis impersonator show in Vegas. This is timeless music. And just like Beethoven or any of the timeless music that has been created through the years, it will live on, and rock and roll will never die.
It won't.
We've been through some good times, some bad times, some tough times, some rough times, but rock and roll's here to stay, man. It's part of the fabric of our culture, and it will never die. And I'm just glad to be a very small thread in that tapestry.
Absolutely. And by the way, when you go see a symphony orchestra do Mozart and Beethoven, how come nobody ever says, "Oh, it's not the real Beethoven"? Like, what do you... Nobody says that. Shut up. Just go to the show and enjoy it.
Exactly.
It's not the real thing.
Exactly. It's all about entertainment, and that's what we're here to do. And then that's what I'm doing with this new record. I mean, these aren't my songs, but every song that I sing, once I write it, now I'm covering it. And so I feel like these are my songs just as much as The Right to Rock or Somebody's Waiting, or Because the Night was a cover song, which was a huge hit for us back in the day, Rock and Roll Outlaw, Rock and Roll Hell. Some of the great songs in my career that I've covered, they are my songs as well. I'm just happy to share them with whoever wants to listen.
Absolutely. And on that, merci, monsieur. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Let's do it again soon. And folks, do check out Ron on Patreon. a platform that I guess I should get onto at some point, but it's a discussion for another moment. Yeah.
I agree. I'd be first in line to subscribe to the Mitch Lafon Patreon if and when you do launch that. It's a great platform, and I support some other artists on there. Mark Striegel from Talking Metal, Talking Rock, he's got a Patreon. I'm a subscriber. I pay $5 a month to hear him talk the rock and rock the talk. So I highly advise.
Yep. And Mark's a great guy, by the way. Sorry to cut you off. Mark is a genuine. I don't want to say dude, but I'm going to say dude. Mark's the real deal.
Dude, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And
he'll be glad that we plugged his show on the Mitch Lafon.
Listen, happily.
It goes around.
Listen, I am going to tell you right now. Go listen to Mark Striegel and Talking Rock. Great show, great host. Go listen to Eddie Trunk, because without Eddie supporting bands from 1995 to 2005, a lot of this wouldn't be existing. It was easy to promote this in 1985. It was a pain in the ass to promote it in 1995. And you know what? He stuck it out. So good on him. Right. And, I'll plug my friend Jeremy White. Go listen to him on the Beat 92.5 in Montreal. There you go. It's family.
Well said. Well done. Mitch Lafon, and we have talked the rock once again, my friend. Thanks again for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and to get back in the ring with one of the heavyweights.
There you go. Merci, monsieur. Bonsoir.
Cheers, brother.
Here's Paul Stanley to tell you why he doesn't want to shake your hand.
Some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia.
Not even cold gin will kill those germs. This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.